Welcome back to the One Winning Pod, Ravens History Corner. It's week 4 of the 2022 NFL season, Ravens flock, and that means this Sunday, it's the number one matchup almost all fans had circled on their calendars when the schedule was released. That's right, we're talking about Josh Allen and the high-powered Bills offense coming into what is expected to be a rainy and windy M&T Bank Stadium, as is being currently projected right now. When we're looking at this matchup, if we're just looking at the numbers, we see that the Bills currently have the number one passing offense in the league by yards per game, while the Ravens, on the other hand, have the worst passing defense through 3 weeks of the season. Now, as we discussed in the Patriots game recap, there are aspects of this defense that are looking good, particularly in the secondary and the defensive line, and that should give the Ravens fans hope that this unit can still be special this season. Yet, currently as it stands, there's a good portion of the fan base that understandably are concerned that the Bills, are going to come in on Sunday and torch this secondary. With that said, it also needs to be remembered that the NFL is a week-to-week league and anything can happen in any matchup. As a fan who always likes to look at the glass half full whenever possible, I wanted to take this time this week to look at 5 instances where the Ravens shut down a high-powered offense when they were not expected to. To look into this, I wanted to look at years where the Ravens defense wasn't quite at the elite levels that we've come to expect from this team. So I'm going to leave out seasons like 2000, 2006, 2011, the top tier defenses. Look more at the middling to, the defenses that really struggled to kind of get a better parallel of what we could be looking at for this game. And again, that's not saying that I don't have a vote of confidence in what this unit can produce. It's just looking at what the defense is right now based on what we've seen this season and what they're going up against, and see if we can find some parallels. So, with no further words here, let's go right into the list. And at number 5, we're going to go look at the 2002 season. This year was right after the great salary cap purge that saw the Ravens lose several defensive veterans from the Super Bowl 35 team, including Michael McCrary, Rod Woodson, Sam Adams, among others. This combined with an injury to Ray Lewis in Week 4 that kept him out of all but one game for the rest of the season brought about a natural decline in the effectiveness for this defense. The Titans, on the other hand, were riding a 5-game win streak into the then-named Ravens Stadium for a Week 12 matchup where their offense looked on paper to overmatch a Ravens defense that was struggling to keep opposing offenses to scoring less than 20 points a game, if you can believe it. But even with a plethora of players not present from the unit that brought about the swagger to Baltimore's defense in 2000 and 2001, defense brought their A-game against their former AFC Central arch rival. Remember, this was the first year of the AFC North. The Ravens defense got to work early in this game after holding the Titans offense to a 3-and-out to start the game. Then rookie Ed Reed came around and blocked the Titans' punt, recovered it, and returned the ball for an 11-yard touchdown. He had a habit of that early in his career. Then on the first play of Tennessee's next possession, the Ravens forced and recovered a fumble, which led to a field goal and a 10-0 first-quarter lead. Now, this start is all the Ravens would need to take control of the game flow, as McNair would go on to throw 3 interceptions en route to a close 13-12 Ravens win, but still, the Ravens defense held this Titans offense to a much lower score than what was expected going into this one. At number 4 on this list, let's just go right back to last year. Through the first 5 weeks of that season, the Ravens defense had given up 25 or more points in 3 of their first 5 games, had a slew of injuries to key players, as I'm sure no one needs to be reminded of, and had the high-powered Chargers offense coming into Baltimore for Week 6. Many fans were expecting a shootout in this game. However, only one offense really came to play. The Ravens defense started their great performance in this game off when Chuck Clark batted the ball at the line of scrimmage on 3rd down to end the Chargers' initial promising drive. And then the next drive, after the Ravens had gone down and scored a touchdown, Deshaun Elliott would bring down Herbert on a blitz to end that drive. And then the next drive would also be ended by Elliott, as his pressure would cause Herbert to throw an errant ball and lead to 4th down. And in this case, the Chargers would attempt to go for it on 4th down and would fail, giving the Ravens the ball in Chargers territory with a 14-0 lead midway through the second. And that's all they would need to eventually bring a 34-6 victory in that game for the Ravens. Third on this list, I'm looking late in the 2015 season. I don't need to remind anyone how compromised the Ravens defense was in 2015. We've talked about it before already in this segment that we've done this year. But, late in the 2015 season, playoffs are out of sight. But who do you got coming in? You got your arch rival division Steelers. The Pittsburgh Steelers coming in here with a 9-5 record. A lot of fans are tuned out, and, they had to watch the Ravens give up a combined not nice 69 points the previous 2 weeks, in addition to the fact that this game was immediately after fans' eyes were gouged out having to watch the Ravens run around in those mustard pants, which were mercifully retired after that one game. But, Ravens fans who still had some hope and just wanted to see the Ravens win a game before the season ended were rewarded here. The defense had an excellent performance here against the Steelers, held them to only 17 points, and quite honestly, the game shouldn't have even been that close. Final score was 20-17, but with the Steelers driving in the fourth quarter, Jimmy Smith picked off Ben Roethlisberger's pass at the goal line and would return it for a touchdown, but Courtney Upshaw's big toe was in offside, so that play was called back, which would allow the Steelers to score a touchdown there. Would turn a game that had turned into 27-10 into a 20-17, and that's the score that the Ravens would end up winning on. A very surprising performance by this defense that had been struggling quite a bit that year and would continue to for the short while of the season that was left. Number 2 on this list, we're going to look at another year where the defense was beat up and not performing anywhere near expectations to what we as fans expect from a Ravens defense. You look at 2007, and by week 13, that defense had surrendered at least 21 points in 7 of the 11 games to that point in the season. And then on the opposite side of the field, on that week, Monday Night Football, you had the historic New England Patriots bringing their undefeated record and their record-pace offense into the crisp Baltimore night in a game that seemingly wasn't going to go well for the Ravens at all. But the Ravens defense, they had different plans on what turned out to be an emotional night. A few days before this game was kicked off, the tragic news that former Miami Hurricane and Washington safety Sean Taylor had tragically lost his life. And, you had several Miami Hurricanes on that Ravens team. You had Ray Lewis, Ed Reed, Willis McGahee. I don't know them personally, honestly, but, I do remember the cameras capturing those three huddling with their heads bowed. I don't know if in prayer or pep talk for that game, but, I think it had to have had some effect on them. The team as a whole played well. They played well in that game. Wasn't a flashy performance, sure. You only had 3 sacks on defense, 1 interception, but through 3 quarters, the game was tied at 17. And you have to remember what offense we're talking about here. The Patriots, to this point in that year, they scored more than 30 points in every game that season coming into the matchup outside of a 24-20 victory over Indianapolis. So for a Ravens defense that was getting uncharacteristically gashed that season, a 17-all tie through 3 was nothing short of absolutely stunning. But unfortunately for the Ravens, the good times just couldn't end with a Ravens win. The Patriots would eke out a final drive. Brady would throw a touchdown pass to Jabbar Gaffney, I believe, with just 44 seconds left on the clock to take a 3-point lead. Ravens would lose this one, but, in a season that had nothing to celebrate for the Ravens, you got to look at this as a positive and a huge accomplishment by this defense in this game. And as good as this performance was, I have to give the number 1 surprising defensive performance in Ravens history to another game against Tom Brady, and that would be the AFC Championship game in 2012. This might be a surprising entry on this list for some fans, but really if you look at the 2012 defense, they were pretty average by Ravens defensive standards. Now, sure, 2008 through 2011, those defenses, I should say, were dominant. But in 2012, you had Ray Lewis, a shell of his Hall of Fame self. Reed and Nato were beginning to decline of their excellent careers. Ladarius Webb was hurt. Suggs tore his Achilles in the offseason, obviously. And though he would return halfway through the season, he was just never Suggs that year. And he was making a pretty, early a return to action from that injury and just wasn't himself. And it was reflected in the statistics, everything that I just said. You look at pretty much every major defensive category for the team that year, they were middle of the pack in all of them. So, when they were going against this Patriots offense, this offense might not have sported Randy Moss or Rob Gronkowski, but still, this offense did excellent in 2012. They put up, post the bye week of that year, they averaged 37 points per game, which included them putting up 41 on a strong Texans defense the week before to get them to the AFC Championship game. So naturally, while there was a lot of excitement going into this game among the fan base after the epic win at Mile High the previous week, there was still a realization that this game itself could be a shootout. And, while Flacco had played excellently in the first two playoff games, would he be able to carry it over and do it a third time? And while the answer to that was yes, Flacco indeed could, as we all know, the defense made his life easier for this game than it had the previous week. So the Ravens, they would be able to keep the Patriots in check in this game pretty much by limiting the big play. If you look back at this, the biggest play that the Patriots had on offense was a 36-yard pass completion to Wes Welker in the fourth quarter, and this was when the Ravens were already ahead 2 scores in this game. The Ravens would pick off Brady twice, recover a Stephen Ridley fumble, and, they didn't sack Brady at all in this game, but still, just the key to this game was limiting the big play. And while the Ravens did trail the Patriots by 6 going into halftime, the second half, the defense just put a stop to the Patriots scoring. The Patriots would not score in the second half, as many remember, and the Ravens would go on to a 28-13 win in this game. All right, so there you have it. That's my take on the top 5 most surprising defensive performances in Ravens history. So to quickly recap, my list was at number 5, the Ravens versus the Titans from 2002. Number 4, the Ravens versus the Chargers from 2021. Number 3, the Ravens versus the Steelers from 2015. Number 2, the Ravens versus the Patriots from 2007. And number 1, the Ravens at the Patriots AFC Championship game from 2012. So that's it for this week's History Corner. Got a game that you feel was left out of this discussion? Feel free to comment below or on Twitter. And as always, remember to subscribe to the YouTube channel and our podcast for great Ravens content all season long.